So far we saw what happened when we execute a couple of statements without a transaction, and then several statements with a transaction and the statements succeed. Now we're going to demonstrate what happens when a transaction rolls back. So what we've got here is a new procedure. We're going to create a 13.3. And you know what? I don't think I mentioned earlier, but the transactions need to be inside of a stored procedure. They are not ever used in just scripts by themselves. You got to put them in a stored procedure because you need to declare some variables, and that has to happen inside a stored procedure. So, okay, same thing as the version that worked. We've got our handler here to handle the situation when an error does occur. We start a transaction here. We've got exactly the same rollback and commit code here when the transaction's over, and here are the statements that are going to update the database that are included inside of a transaction. So now we're going to try to insert student Rhonda Rollback. We'll capture her ID. Then we'll assign her to section number 1, and that will work. Then we get into this statement where we run into problems because we're going to assign Rhonda to section number 99, but 99 doesn't exist. Now, the important thing to get here is that we want these three insert statements here to be all or nothing. Either we succeed completely in enrolling Rhonda and registering her in a couple of classes, or we leave the database exactly what it was so that we can go back and fix the problem and then try again. So first thing I'm going to do is recreate the database because I don't want anything left over from previous work. Let's come on in and go ahead and run this. Now we know we're going to get an error here, and normally when you get an error in the kind of SQL we've been writing is everything stops at that line and you get an error message down here. But watch what happens this time. Let's clear this so we have a nice clean slate to run off. Okay, let's go run it. Notice we got no errors. Okay, let's look at our results. Move this up. Let's get that out of the way. Student failed to add. Cannot add or update a child role at foreign key constraint. You get a technical error message here, but basically it says we didn't find a section number 99, so this insert statement failed and rolled back the transaction. It did not cause a SQL error at the bottom down here. We did not get an error. Instead, the error was handled by the handler up here. So when this statement failed here, when we tried to insert into section non-existent section 99, this statement aborted because it's not possible to do that. Then the MySQL executed the handler up here. We set error occurred to true, and we captured the error message. Then it came down here to our if statement. After this failed, we hit the handler. Then we've moved on down to the if statement where we tested error occurred. It was set to true by the handler up here. Okay, inside the handler. So we came in, we rolled the transaction back. That meant all these temporary changes that we had started in the database. Whoops, let me just get more space on the screen here. These three inserts were all held onto the side. The rollback discards them. That left the database right back where it was at the start transaction, all or nothing. And then we displayed the message, a student failed to add, and showed the message here on the screen. Now, let's go look at what we got from the student table. Let's execute this statement. ID 100, that was the last record created by College Create. So, Rhonda did not get added. That's because we rolled back and threw away this insert. What about this adding of the new student into section number 1? Let's go look at the section table. Excuse me, the registration table. And the highest student number in there is 27. We would have expected to see 101 if this insert had succeeded, but it was discarded in the rollback. So what we wound up with in the end was nothing changed in the database because anything failed in here. Invoked the handler up here, and in the begin-end clause up here for this handler. We came down here, found out that an error occurred, we rolled everything back and displayed an error message, and nothing was changed in the database, which is exactly what we wanted to have happen. We wanted these statements to be all or nothing. The other important thing to understand is once you start a transaction here, and something goes wrong, this transaction continues to execute. In other words, it doesn't abort the whole stored procedure. That's because if something goes wrong, we want to get down here to the if occurred, if an error occurred, so that we can execute a rollback down here. So we can't just abort on this statement. Instead, we invoke the handler and then continue execution farther along here, where we can get down. So we're handling the error ourselves instead of allowing the MySQL to come in and just abort the whole procedure. So that's how you roll back a transaction, and you wind up with no changes to the database, no matter how many attempts you tried to do. How many inserts you did, you could have done, it's not unusual to see a transaction with maybe 100 different updates inside of it, and they'll all be discarded if you do a rollback.